So thank you so much, Dorothy, for joining us today. It's a real honor to have you with us.
It's nice to be here.
Thank you so much. So Dorothy, you are truly a much beloved and cherished member of our community. I don't know if you realize how much so, but when your name comes up, and it comes up frequently, the comments are always across the board the same. Either people say, I love her, or they say, she's wonderful, or they say, she's wonderful and I love her. And that's exactly how David and I feel. It's a real honor to have you with us.
Thank you, thank you.
So, Dorothy, I know you say that you owe so much to your heritage, and have such an honoring and love for your parents, especially your maternal grandparents. Can you please just share a little bit?
Well, imagine people leaving their family and friends from their hometown to travel to an unknown place. In 1888, in the blizzard of '88, they landed in New York, my maternal and maternal grandparents, and had never seen snow. My paternal grandfather settled in Mount Vernon, New York, and opened a grocery store, which he eventually lost because so many immigrants were coming to town. He lost his business by putting them on the books, so to say. My maternal grandfather carried coal on his back to deliver to tenants, which is the way they heated and cooked their meals. And then he would go home and have dinner with his family, leave and sweep saloons for another quarter, and go home and get on his knees and thank goodness that he was in America.
So he had the
Wonderful
gratitude.
story.
Well,
Yes.
it is. It's a beautiful
Yes.
story. How about your mom and dad?
Oh, mother and dad were active people in their church, in politics, and always giving. And mother graduated from high school, which was unusual for a large family, Italian family at that time. And my father was active in politics also. Eventually they settled in Saybrook for a period of time, where my mother ran as a candidate for senator to the state legislature. And my father became what's known as a trial justice at that time. And for that position, one didn't have to have a law degree.
Okay.
So they were quite active.
And I think that describes perhaps your desire and interest and motivation to stay involved, especially in local politics.
Yeah.
But there was something else that you had shared that I thought was fascinating. You said your father went to college, but at what age?
He was 78
That's to me
when he
incredible.
attended the college. My mother had passed away,
Oh,
and he remarried and settled in Manchester and attended classes at the Manchester Community College.
Oh,
amazing. That's just so beautiful. I mean, I've heard of people in 50s and 60s. I never heard of 78. And you said he wrote a novel.
He started to write a novel, and unfortunately it has been misplaced.
Oh,
Neither my sister nor I can locate it.
Oh.
We're still searching
My
because
gosh.
both of us have made moves and are
Things get
fearful
lost.
that in
Oh.
one of the moves it was misplaced completely.
I hope not. I hope
I
it
hope not.
surfaces.
Yeah, I hope it turns up at some point.
sure. Would be wonderful. So speaking of family, how many children do you have?
I had 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys, who grew up in Branford and attended Branford schools.
You say had.
Yeah.
I lost my youngest son 3 years ago,
Oh, 3.
unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, I'm
sorry to hear that. Yeah, you mentioned he was 59 at the time.
He was 59 at the time, and my husband turned 60 in January and died in April of 1982.
Oh,
So he's been gone about 36 years.
oh my.
Yeah.
I have a question. How did you work outside of the home?
I did.
What type of work?
Well, I had to work for a period of time, part-time at the hardware store in Branford, known as
Oh, really?
Collins and Freeman. My husband had decided to take a chance on a business. It eventually did not work out, but anyway. And I worked part-time in a hardware store, which was interesting. Following that, which was quite extreme, I became employee of Yale University.
Oh,
In what
And,
capacity?
And in the Department of Pharmacology at the medical school, they've changed names, I'm sure, of positions, but I was known as a senior administrative assistant and secretary to the chairman.
Beautiful.
wow. So you had told us that after your husband passed away, that you then sold your home in Connecticut, and before you moved on to your next location, that you took some of the proceeds from that sale and you did what?
I was being a little bit selfish, but I took part of the money and took a trip to China.
China? Why China?
I had always been fascinated with the Asian culture, and having met researchers from China. China was just opening its doors in those days and allowing researchers to spend time in the United States. The department was primarily oriented toward cancer research, so there was a great exchange. And they would come over, maybe a group of 2 or 3 for 2 years, and then another group would come over, and they would always come see Mrs. Dorothy, and I formed a friendship. And I was so happy to make the trip, and they met me in Beijing, and I had a tour of the Institute of Materia Medica,
Beautiful.
and it was a wonderful experience.
That's
Yeah.
Marvelous. I don't call that selfish. I call that adventurous.
Yeah, adventurous for sure.
It was.
So then the next place you moved to was to Florida, which you told us you really enjoyed living there. But you said that you had several major setbacks in Florida. What type of
Well,
setbacks?
Florida was there's a different attitude feeling in the air. It's freer. And I enjoyed the community in which I lived and participated in the Environmental Learning Center where I gave nature walks. Also helped out at a place called Hope, which helped immigrant workers and people and their children after school. So I did that and worked with the Lions Club in organizing health fairs and that kind of thing.
Lovely.
The sad part was the hurricanes. The first hurricane that came in 2004, I lost a ground level porch, open porch. And within a couple of weeks, a second hurricane
Wow.
was predicted, and my house was full of mold and a hole in the roof from the first one. And I could not find a storage place on the East Coast. So therefore, my daughter-in-law found a place on the West Coast, and I had to move all my belongings
Wow.
to the West Coast of Florida for about a year and a half.
Wow.
I lived with friends, came back and lived with a daughter for a little while, but I wasn't ready to give it up. And so I built another house down there
Oh, okay.
and stayed for another 2.5 years.
But what happened with the third hurricane?
The third hurricane, my house was gone.
So you
So,
lost the house.
I had lost the house completely
Oh.
and had not yet built a new one, so
But
I
had
was
saved the
fortunate.
possessions.
I saved my possessions.
Wow.
That was incredible to me that it happened.
No.
I don't know how I thought that I should do that, but
So
I did.
wonderful, yeah, that you saved the possessions.
And that was the main thing.
So
you know.
Dorothy, we're hearing that, many of us, we each have our story, but you certainly have gone through major traumas, losses with the death of your husband, the death of your son, a loss of a home.
Yes.
But what helped you get through, what did you rely on that helped you the most?
Well, first, in the first sense, when my husband passed away, I still had a career,
Mhm.
and that was of immeasurable help in keeping my mind active during the days.
Yes.
And just the fact that one comes to the realization that life is for the living, and actually death is part of life. And with friends, I have to say friends and family, because I had a lot of support.
Yeah.
And I think that I just worked it through.
Yeah, and I think you also shared at one point when we were talking that you don't stay stuck. And you somehow are able to move forward, which is an incredible gift.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure there are others who feel this way, but I just feel as though there's so much to do in life and so much to learn every day, and my association with people and their activities and what's going on in the world is so important.
It is.
And you have to concentrate on those things.
Exactly, and you do.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
That sounds like some of the beliefs that you had told us about. Also, you said about the beliefs that carry you through life. You talked about independence. No need to prove, but to do what you feel.
Be
What you feel is
authentic.
right. Be authentic. Yes, things like that.
Yeah.
Anything else that?
Well, I've always felt that no matter where a person comes from, no matter what the appearance, everyone has something to contribute to this life, this planet. And we gain so much from each other that helps to shape us too.
For sure.
And, excuse me, I've seen that so much in you, Dorothy, because I've seen where we might be at a political, let's say a meeting together, and perhaps part of that meeting you found offensive or you're upset, but you have such a grace. I've never seen you attack the person. You're authentic, you stand up for what you believe, you're direct, but you express your dislike of what's happening perhaps, but you don't attack the human being, which is an immense skill and a great gift.
Well, I thank you for those words, because we're all in this together.
Yeah,
We're
sure
all, and I think it behooves us to support each other, and so that's my philosophy in terms of associations, whether it be acquaintances or friends, and we meet all kinds.
You're right.
Right.
So, Dorothy, how many years have you lived in Branford?
Oh, 41 years.
Wow, that's a long time. And I know at one point in your living here, you became active with Meals on Wheels. But I also know that you became active with the Senior Center, it became a special
Yeah.
place for you. But you've made some initial important impacts. Can you just share briefly what those were and how you brought it about?
Well, in my feeling that I wanted to contribute to the community, I started doing the Meals on Wheels.
Right.
Yes, but in 2013, Florence West was the moderator of a discussion group called Hot Topics. Flo was a retired professor of geriatrics and was quite upset at the physical being of the building and felt as though we might consider doing something. In the beginning, there was a group of maybe 8 or 10 people, but eventually it came down to 4 of us. And we decided that we should, let me mention the other names, Helen Laird and Helen Kelsey.
Okay.
Helen Kelsey and I formed a great relationship, and I smile when I say that.
Yeah, you do.
And so the first thing we did was to have an open meeting at the library, the auditorium at the library. It was an election year, so it was quite fortuitous that we had it at that time. And many people opened their homes for breakfast, for luncheons, teas, and all the candidates came. It precipitated the appointment of a person to study the situation. And we went to different senior centers to interview directors. We wrote a pamphlet. We contacted Lonnie Reed, who was the representative at the time, met with the first selectman and other individuals. And eventually the town did admit and started actions to get us a new senior center.
Yeah, and so I know at the time you fixed the side ramp got fixed and cracks in the driveway. So your parents' activism worked through you, Dorothy.
Yeah, like my father, there were not street lights on the street we lived in Saybrook, and my father went after the company and we had street lights eventually.
Yeah, so you grew with that
So,
kind of activism.
Yeah, and you know, it wasn't the fact that they said to us, you have to do this
No.
or you have to do that. It was a matter of learning by seeing
Modeling.
what they were doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, they were the example. The apple doesn't fall too far from
That's
the tree.
exactly.
Guess that's the
And
answer.
so how critical is that for our kids?
That's
right?
I think
right.
so.
Of what we model, absolutely. Then I know at 89, this story I find so charming and wonderful. And it's gotten around the senior center. It's on people's minds and tongues. At 89, you went to Block Island with a friend. Can you just go on from there and
The
tell us what
senior
happened?
center had a trip to Block Island. People decided what they wanted to do. Helen Kelsey and I had a wonderful relationship. Helen was a little more gregarious than I, but we were a good match. And we were told that there were these wonderful lobster rolls on the other side of the island. Hot, humid day, but we started walking. We finally had gotten maybe half a mile, and there was a stone wall, and I said, Helen, we have got to sit down and rest. So we did for a second, and then Helen said, let's hitchhike. So the two of us stood at the curb and hitchhiked.
That is so fantastic. And then at 90, I know you went to a costume party, and at 90 dressed up as what?
Oh, we went to the party shop together to pick out our costumes. And one was a costume of mustard, and the other was ketchup. She was mustard, and I was ketchup. And they had these hats as though they were bottles, you know, the kind that you turn out and squeeze out. And on top of that, we put signs on our backs. Hers said something like, spicy.
Hot and spicy, right?
Spicy. And I said something about a hamburger.
That's
And a la Wimpy, remember that? that
Wimpy.
Yeah.
No,
Wimpy.
Wimpy. Okay.
So
You also at 90 did something. It's the most awesome. At 90, you did what?
I happened to have been in Florida visiting a nephew at Fort Myers Beach, right on the Gulf. And for my 90th birthday, they gave me a trip parasailing.
Parasailing.
And so I parasailed over the Gulf.
It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
It was
At
fun.
92, you asked a friend in community, Peter Craig, if he would take you, what?
Kayaking.
Kayaking. And you had said that you had kayaked in Florida in the river, but never kayaked
In the Sound.
Yes, so how was that?
And you know, you never lose your desire to do those things. And so I feel also sometimes that you may not do them as you did when you were in your youth, but if you do them to the point that you are able to at that point in your life, why not?
It's amazing.
And Peter did.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
It's beautiful.
I've already lost my desire. When you said kayaking on a river in Florida, I think Florida alligators. And, get out of my boat.
Not you.
No?
Yeah, it was fun.
It's amazing to me. I remember seeing you the day after you went kayaking with Peter. You glowed. You were so enthusiastic.
Oh.
And so, you said to me, Marge, I can't believe I had that much energy.
That's true.
Yeah.
You don't know until you
Try it. Oh, that's
And-
awesome. And then at 93, you're still involved in local politics. You're still involved with watercolor classes. To me, you are such an inspiration because you have such an open-hearted enthusiasm for life. I find it glorious.
Yeah, all those kind words. You're so
But it is,
right.
you are, that's who you are.
And it's true. I just feel as though there's so much more I want to do in this life.
And
I
you'll
hope
keep
I-
doing it.
I hope I keep doing it, right.
So in this life that you've led so far, what are you grateful for?
I think first and foremost, I'm grateful for my heritage. To think that my grandparents had the courage to leave their homes, family, friends, and come to an unknown place. And the determination and the hard work and interest in this society that they gave, my parents also. So that's my first and foremost. But also, I'm grateful for all the people I've known, because each and every one of us have something to contribute. And I've known some great people.
And Dorothy, I want to say I'm deeply grateful to be able to call you friend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
So our special guest next month on Meet Your Neighbors will be Dan McGowan. He's the manager of the transfer station and the recycling center. And he will help us to truly understand how we can properly recycle. And he will also address what we do with all the holiday gift wrap and all the other stuff that we get and we don't know what to do with. So you can find our program on YouTube. You just go to Meet Your Neighbors Brantford and you can pick up any of our episodes. We also invite you to please reach out to us at Marge, M-A-R-G-E, David, Peace, at gmail.com with any suggestions or comments that you might have for us. So in the meantime, until December, we wish you a loving and blessed Thanksgiving holiday, and may you always have everything to be grateful for.
And I'm David Schneider, and I approve this message.